Go live later. So,
Okay.
anyways, hey, welcome, guys. This is BJ Man from HowExpert. Today's we have a special guest interview. The author of the book, How Expert Guide to Amusement Parks and Roller Coasters. His name is Noah Granger. How you doing, Noah? Welcome to the interview. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to having a nice little conversation about this. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Before we get into the interview, I just want to say, as a publisher, I always see a lot of applicants. I found Noah through Upwork.com, which is a website where clients, employers, online business owners can find freelancers like Noah. Okay. And well, over the years, what I look for are people who have three things, generally speaking: a unique topic, real life passion, knowledge, experience in the topic, and number three, excellent writing in the cover letter answers. And to be honest with you, and when I saw Noah's application back in the days, I still remember very detailed cover letter answers about his passion, and he had a zest for amusement parks. It definitely stood out. And that's why we're here today. And he wrote the book, How Expert Got to Amusement Parks. So I just want to say thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So let's get to it. How did you get into amusement parks? Like one of the things about his bio, he actually stood out. When I read that's kind of stood out, I'll just say, is he, as a kid, he went to amusement parks on a weekly basis. Okay. Like for me, I'll be just honest. I didn't grow up like that. Like we only went a handful of times. Okay. But so anyways, how did you grow into this topic? Get into this topic. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that first and foremost, I grew up in the LA area, so I have access to pretty much you name it, we have it. We have Disneyland, we have Knott's Berry Farm, we have Six Flags, we have Universal, we have pretty much any type of park that a family or any demographic wants to visit. The LA area has it, right?
Right.
So I grew up going to Disneyland just like, most kids that, live within a, 50-mile radius of Disneyland, they end up getting their Disneyland passes with their family. And, I was going to Disneyland so much that my parents would be like, hey, we're going to Disneyland. And my brother and I'd be like, Mom, Dad, do we really have to go to Disneyland again? Which it's pretty funny considering that, for a lot of people, that's, like their dream to visit Disneyland someday. So, I I'd say the hobby started by just visiting parks, but it didn't really pick up until I was about 12, 13 years old. That's when I finally put my big boy pants on and I was able to go on the larger coasters, and I started getting on rides that made me, pretty uncomfortable, pretty intense rides. I remember distinctly going on Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm when I was 12, and there was just this adrenaline rush that I got addicted to, and addicted to in a good way, of course. And since then, I've just always had just a love for roller coasters, paying attention to their layouts and the statistics and the technology and everything that goes into it. Yeah, that'd probably be my best answer.
So, when was the first time you went to amusement parks, theme park? Just curious.
Oh man, the first time other than
How
Disney,
old were you? How old were you?
yeah, I mean, I was so young that I don't even have a memory, to be
Okay, I
honest.
see. And
Yeah.
accelerator. Just curious that you mentioned the accelerator. That was that moment. Like, where was that right at? And how old were you when you had that memory? Just curious.
Yeah, so I was 12 years old. My family had Knott's passes that summer, and
Nice.
going into the summer, I was still afraid of getting on anything that was above 50 feet tall, 50 miles per hour, anything that was above moderate intensity. I was too scared to ride. But the story basically goes like this, and I'll share it real quick. Is there was I was next in line. I wasn't gonna go on it though. It was gonna be my brother and my dad. They were gonna ride it, and then we cross over the ride and don't we watch them go, and we just stay together as a family. Is why I was in line. This little girl was like right in front of us, and she barely passed the height requirement. She got on right in front of me, and I was like, man, she's gonna ride it. That means and she was maybe like half my age. And at that point,
Oh,
I was
interesting.
like, I was like, man, like if she can ride it, and kind of my thought process was, well, this it's gonna be maybe like a 30-second ride, maybe I'll just we'll get through it. What makes that ride stand out in particular is it has an 82-mile-per-hour launch and it hits that top speed in like 2.3 seconds to be specific. So it's recognized as one of the most intense launches, and so those first few seconds of the ride, you launch right out of the station. I've never forgotten that sort of out of control feeling that you get on a ride like that, and that sort of adrenaline that comes of that intensity is something that I've never forgotten, and
So, yeah.
I live for those moments, really.
Wow, that's amazing. Accelerator, huh? Knott's Berry Farm.
Accelerator, Knott's Berry Farm.
Does
Yes.
it go like this, like visually?
So you launch out of the station, straight track. You head up a vertical spike, and you go over. I can see my camera's kind of inverted, so I'm going to try the best I can.
Oh,
So
sorry. Let me hold on. Let me do this one. The widescreen. There you go.
okay, so you head up a straight track, which is a launch. You head up
Oh
vertical
shoot.
like this. There we go. You head up vertical like this, and then you go over the top hat element, which I talk about in the book, which you basically crest over the hill like this, and then it's a 90-degree dive. Of course, during the drop, you do straighten back out from the direction that you came from. But yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. That's crazy, man.
yeah.
That's not. I haven't wrote that, but I may in the future. Who knows? But that sounds crazy.
You should. Yeah,
So let's go a little bit into the book
yeah,
content. Something interesting is you wrote top 101 wrote theme parks, right?
yeah. Top 101.
Now you didn't go to every one of them, right?
No.
Obviously, but you did your research, and and they're yeah. Top one, it was fascinating. I never heard of the top one. I looked into it,
Oh,
but
Europa.
anyways, top five. What would you say? Let's wait. Top. Do you know from memory like top 3, 5 are?
Yeah, so I believe Europa Park was number one.
Yes, that was like I've never heard of that. Like but that's in Germany or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so Europa Park is in Germany. I know I have Cedar Fair, or not Cedar Fair, Cedar Point's number two, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then after that, um, I mean, I know most of the top 10. Number three, was it a US park or was it an international park?
It's
Because
okay. It's okay. It's all good. But
yeah, I don't really remember the rest of the
yeah, but the
top.
first one, tell us why you picked that as a first one. Just curious.
Yeah, Europa Park in particular. Well, before I go in specifically with Europa Park, my list was definitely. It's actually not my personal list. I tried to be very objective with how I did the rankings.
Right.
So I tried to. I had to award a park for the number one spot that truly is able to notch all the boxes off for theming, having that dynamic, immersive experience where thrill seekers will be excited to go, but also families. A park that really many people can agree upon, and not just if I were to if I were to just go based off of roller coasters only, then a Cedar Point or Six Flags Magic Mountain,
Right.
Six Flags Great Adventure, some of those more concrete thrill-seeking parks would have been definitely higher on the list. Me personally, that's what I look for because I'm in it for the thrills. But I definitely tried to be very objective with it. Europa Park specifically, from what I've heard, it brings this dynamic experience where you are immersed in a way that's described that I've never heard before. You're immersed in these different lands, unlike any other park. There's no other park that does it as well as they do. Is basically what I'm trying to say. I
Yeah.
got a lot of my information about Europa Park from Taylor from Coaster Studios, which is he's a YouTuber that I actually grew up watching. He's actually a big part of the reason why I got into the hobby as well. And from how he's described Europa Park, I mean, that's on the top of my bucket list. And so that's
Wow.
definitely why it's made number one. Yeah.
Yeah. And for people in California, and what would you rate? There's popular ones. What would you rate as the number one
Oh, for
in
California?
California? Yeah, just
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah. California is an interesting state because um, you definitely have something different for everyone. So it really depends who you're asking. If it's a thrill seeker, their top destination is going to be Six Flags Magic
Right.
Mountain.
Right.
And that's just because they have more roller coasters than any other park, and their coaster lineup's excellent. If it's a family where you have some thrill seekers and you also have some people that are looking for more of like a theme park experience, it could be Knott's Berry Farm. But if it's a family that has younger kids, it's going to be Disneyland. That being said, if it's a group of movie fans, they're going to really want to go to Universal Studios because you get a studio tour, and it's unlike, I've been on the studio tour so many times, and every time you get on it, it's different, and you see so many relics and so many sets, and it's truly a one of a kind experience that you don't get in another park. So really, that depends who you're asking. If you're asking me, it's Six Flags though, just because
Right.
I'm in it
Okay,
for.
great. Yeah, that was on the list. The closest one in California, I
Yeah,
noticed.
I believe it's. I believe Six Flags Magic Mountain was either 7 or 8. I believe it was pretty
Yeah,
high.
it was I believe it was top 10. Regardless, that's
It
cool.
was
That was in the
definitely
top
top
10.
10. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for just beginners just getting started, going to amusement parks if the lines are long? Like any tips? Just go over any basic fundamental tips you would share.
Yeah. So especially if you're getting into roller coasters, I'd say in terms of first and foremost learning about rides and what kind of experience you want. Um, Definitely hit the local parks first, right? And I
Local.
say get a feel before you write up a bucket list, before you decide what kind of parks you want to visit, you know, see what kind of parks you like first. Obviously we mentioned Europa Park is, maybe the top destination, but maybe for some people they are more in it for the parks. Like we mentioned Six Flags and Cedar Point and Kings Island, all these roller coaster heavy parks that specialize in that. And also get to know the kind of roller coasters you like. Some people love airtime thrilled, hyper coasters, or some people prefer one form of airtime over another, whether it's floater airtime, which is more of a sustained airtime, or an ejector airtime, which is when you're getting this sort of I'm getting thrown out of my seat sensation, right? So you definitely have to decipher what type of ride experience you like the most, right? Some people really like the intensity and the high G's. I think we mentioned Intimidator 305 in the book, which is a ride that they had to shorten the first turn on the coaster just because too many people were blacking out. There it is, Intimidator 305. So really, it's something that you have to decide first. What kind of coasters am I really into? Maybe you're just into everything. Maybe you're into all the different kinds, which I go over, I believe, pretty early on in the book. In terms of, you mentioned lines, I'd say there's no tip for avoiding long lines. However, I can give tips for what to find things to do in line would be my best tip. Uh, Find ways to develop patience, I guess, because lines, if you get into this hobby, it will make you a very patient person is
Wow.
what I will say, because you will, and of course it depends on the parks you're going to, but
Or
it will.
you have to learn how to make the best out of it during that time.
Oh yeah,
Somehow, some way.
what I will say, if you're visiting a park only once and you're on vacation, uh, usually parks have their fast pass. Their at Six Flags they do a flash pass. Usually there's a way you could buy yourself some sort of like voucher to get front of the line. And if
Right.
you're visiting the park once, you should definitely do that, especially if it's a park that's in the top 10. If it's like Kings Island, if it's Carowinds, if it's Cedar Point, if it's Six Flags Magic Mountain, if it's a park, I don't know as much about the parks in Europe, but if it's a park like that, definitely, and you're only there maybe for 1 or 2 days, yeah, you should spend that extra cash and make sure you get on
So
everything.
okay, so you're saying there's a regular ticket and a speed pass ticket for every amusement park?
Usually parks do offer that.
Okay.
I can't speak for every single park.
Okay, yeah, of course. Generally speaking, how much is a ticket for an amusement park right now these days?
Oh man. Yeah, I'd say tickets themselves, it depends on the park. If you're going to a Six Flags park, it could be
Yeah.
more of it might not be as expensive. It could you're looking maybe $50 to $80 range.
Yeah.
If you're looking at Disneyland, you're gonna spend well over $100 on a ticket.
Really? Okay.
Park. Cedar Fair is usually somewhere in between. They typically they're a little more affordable, but they're not as inexpensive as Six Flags. It really
Like
depends on
$30, $40 maybe. I'm just
yeah.
curious the price range.
You typically won't see parks that are in the $30 to $40 range. You'll usually, I'd say, 50 in between $50 and $100 is what you're looking at for a general admission ticket these days.
Okay. And how much is a season pass? Just curious. Some people have that, right?
Yeah, the season, season passes are great if it's a local park. I highly suggest. I think that's one of the tips that I couldn't stress enough. And when it comes to season passes, usually they're not that much more than like the tickets. Parks, yeah, and I saw you.
So regular ticket $100, season pass $90.
So if I'll use Knott's Berry Farm as an example because I'm actually currently a pass holder at Knott's. I've got my pass right here in my wallet actually. So if you're looking at like a
go from the back if you want to see the people. You don't have to show, but from the back it doesn't show everything.
Yes,
how does it look like?
Yeah, here it is. This is the pass.
It says, and behind, and it scans it. And, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I actually have a Six Flags pass here too.
Oh, you got two?
Oh yeah,
wow. You have Disneyland.
I don't have Disneyland.
No, you don't really like. You got over. You went too much.
Yeah. Okay. So with the Knott's pass that I have, I believe it's once you go twice, you've already paid off like getting a pass and using it twice is already the equivalent of like buying a ticket base. Or did I say that right? If you pay a little extra for a season pass, it basically pays for itself after 2 visits. And so so if you think about it, which this is usually the case with parks, right? If you go multiple times, it's going to eventually become a better value than the ticket.
Yeah,
right?
Pay for itself.
It's going to pay for itself. And so eventually, let's say a park's ticket is like, $50. Okay. Right. But let's say the season pass is like 100. And if you use the season pass twice, you've already paid for a ticket twice, basically with that cost. But let's say you go to a park 4 times, and then that's a $200 value that you got at $100. So if you're going to go to the park regularly, you should get a season pass.
Of course, if this is your hobby, you have to get it. My question is, how long is a season? 1 year?
A season's usually a year, and I will add too, it depends if it's going to last and go into the next year or if it ends at the new year. Every park chain's different. But also, I will add that if you really get into the hobby, when it comes to chains like Six Flags or Cedar Fair, or I don't know about the parks in Europe. I think actually one of my tips is about some of the parks in Europe do typically, some of the chains do have this as well. If you get a season pass for one Six Flags, one Cedar Fair park, it will cover the entire chain. So you could buy a Cedar Fair Platinum Pass. It's a little more than the Knott's Pass, and you can use that pass at any Cedar Fair park, whether it's Cedar Point, Kings Island, Carowinds, any park you go to. So usually,
it's like a VIP extra level card.
It's like the extra, and yeah, if you can. So the thing is, parks are expensive, but if you do plan to go extreme with the hobby, the more so you do, the more affordable that you go on vacation. You won't be thinking about the ticket. You'll be thinking about the hotels and these other things because, the pass is only one minor expense at that point, and it's already paid for pretty much any park you go to as long as the pass covers the chain.
So
right?
You actually go travel to another state like Texas, right? Hotel.
I've gone to Florida before. I was actually at Disney World just a few years ago
Okay.
right before the pandemic.
Okay.
Well, I got to experience that with my family actually.
Right. But
Yeah.
primarily, you like to be local, right? I mean, you like
I,
to go, right?
I like to be local. I have my best understanding of the industry is definitely with California, but
Yeah. Okay.
um,
I see.
I'd also say it is my aspiration to do all that traveling once I can. I'm a college student.
Of course.
Currently working towards that point where
Of
I
course.
can travel. I do want to go to Europe. I do want to visit Europa Park. I do want to visit Japan, China. I do want to cover all the big
Wow.
parts. It's definitely something that I will do. So
Hey,
it's
one step at a time. It's all
that's
you got to master what you are in your domain first, right?
yes.
Yeah,
Oh yes, of
and go
course, of
for
course, of
from
course.
there. So, any extra? Oh yeah, just curious. Like how? So budget, like season pass,
Right.
in California, 300, $500 a year. I'm just curious. Is it about that or what?
Um, I typically keep to like one different park a year. So it's something that if I try to get a Knott's Pass, Six Flags, Universal all at the same time, I'm gonna my savings account's gonna tank, right? So
Yeah.
I think this past year I've had Knott's Berry Farm and I've also had SeaWorld San Diego down south because my brother's college is actually right by SeaWorld. So I've had those two parks. I mean, that's about the Knott's Pass was about 140. SeaWorld's about actually I'm not too sure. I know it's well over 100. So I've been looking at around 250, but that's just the
That's
ticket
not bad at all. If it's for a whole year,
for
I
the
mean
whole
that
year.
totally makes sense.
Yeah, it's
I mean, because you know what, I don't go to these. I mean, I'll be honest, I should. But like, by the way, if you go there, is there places like a mall, like you can stay there, you can do some work online, whatever, like to
which
chill.
park specifically?
The ones in California, Disneyland, Knott's Berry,
Yeah.
Six Flags, the closest one, wherever here, they
I
all have
mean,
it, right?
they'll have yeah. I mean, Disneyland has Downtown Disney. Universal has the City Walk. Knott's
Okay.
they have
But
not they do have a really good coffee place across the street called
but
Coffee.
those you don't need the passes to get in. Those are all free. You're talking
No, you don't need the
no,
pass to get it. Just the park usually.
but inside the park they have places too, just to chill a little,
Um,
right?
Usually
Or
they
they
do.
don't. They
Usually
do.
they do. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. Just curious from my own personal. Just curious.
Yeah, of
But
course.
um, yeah. So I was just thinking that makes total sense to get a season pass, even if you're just a regular person. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna go 3 to 5 times a year if you're most
Yeah.
people you
You're paying
know
good value then.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it totally. Just out of curiosity, what's the cheapest one in California? Knott's Berry Farm
The
or
cheapest would actually be Six Flags
Six
probably.
Flags? How much?
Yeah.
300.
So, with Six Flags, I actually had a membership recently. So the card I showed was my membership, and I paid about, I think it was about $13 a month. I don't know if that's that same price now. It was before the pandemic, so that's kind of changed the price.
That's
Um, it was a
that's
monthly rate, so even after a year, I could continue it and just pay monthly.
wow. That's
Um,
that's great, dude. That's good. That's
the
good.
Six Flags pass,
Any other additional stuff that you want to share? Uh, Anything or in the book or
yeah.
can people anything inside the book or whatnot?
Yeah, so the book is definitely structured to where I give background information about the various types of rides. So you can kind of have some sort of background knowledge, expertise. When you go to a park, you can point out a certain ride and go, oh, that's that kind of ride. And typically, this is the kind of experience that you'd expect from that type of ride. So I cover roller coasters, dark rides, flat rides, all the different kinds of rides. I also, as you can see in chapter 1, I stress there's a difference between theme parks and amusement parks. If you want to find out about that, go check it out. And then after that, in chapter 3, as you can see, I did an entire rankings list of top 101 parks. It's a lot of parks, and I definitely included parks from California, my home state, and the United States, but also Europe and Japan, China, typically the areas where they're heavily populated with amusement parks. you'll definitely find that I was as inclusive as possible, so you could, by chance find one of those parks near you. As I am now being reminded of the top 5 I wrote that I couldn't remember earlier. Yes, King
It's all
Salmon
good.
Gully,
It's all good.
Alton Towers number 3. Yes, now I
We
wrote
show
now I
top
remember it all.
10. We got to show
I
California, man.
yeah. What was that?
Hershey Park.
Hershey
Six
Park.
Flags, finally,
There it is,
California.
number 7. Yeah. And then after that, I covered the bucket list rides that, pretty much generally they're seen as like rides that you have to experience at some point. So I covered all the bucket list attractions, both roller coasters, flat rides, water rides, dark rides, all that. And then at the end, I just kind of tie it all in by talking about tips and things you should expect, other aspects of parks you may think about, like food. We all love food, not always theme park food, but sometimes food, depending on the park. Shows, meet and greets. Water parks, I didn't feel the need to go into that too much because I wanted to stay on topic with amusement parks and roller coasters themselves. Water parks, that's a whole another beast to tackle.
Oh, wow.
And then
Yeah, it's like a water parks. Yeah. That's another
right.
thing.
And then the visit itself. So I give some tips about juggling budget. I'm a college student, so I'm a pro at juggling budget. I have every rewards app you could think of on my phone, of course. So juggling budget's definitely important. And yeah,
Wait, just kidding. What did you say? You have what in your phone?
I have about every single rewards app you could think of because I'm a
Oh, I didn't
college
even know
student.
that type of thing existed. Oh, you mean couponing, right?
Couponing. Yeah. I was just saying a
Oh, that's
joke
cool.
about
Yeah, some people know how to do that. Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely with the phone though, usually parks do have apps where you could check ride times and stuff like that. So I think I mentioned that as well. That's also a tip is download if you're going to a park, always
Just
check.
out of curiosity, what's the best couponing app that you use on a regular basis that for anything, not just amusement parks? What do you recommend?
McDonald's rewards app. I get my
Oh, they have a good deal. They have good deals, right?
they have good deals. But for amusement parks, Six Flags, if you're a season pass holder, the app typically has a lot of coupons and a lot of rewards. And typically they'll also have the bring a friend free day, the bring a friend free or discounted coupons as well. Although I will say, keep in mind if you do plan to go to an amusement park on a bring a friend free or a bring a friend for a discount day, you're probably gonna wait in long lines. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Noah. I appreciate you for coming to this interview, bro.
Of course. Is
And
it on Amazon now? Is that
yeah,
right?
this is just an ebook. The paperback and hardback should be available soon, sometime today,
Okay.
maybe, but we'll get to it,
Very cool.
just the Kindle
I'm
version.
this is the first time I'm seeing it, so it looks really nice. Wow.
Thank you. I appreciate it,
This.
man. So yeah, and oh yeah, by the way, just curious, like, it was on the question. What do you do for work right now? You go to school right now? What is it?
Yeah, so I'm a college student at California State University Fullerton, just
Right.
15 minutes away from Knott's, just 10 minutes away from Disneyland. So
Oh, wow.
I still found a way to manage to be close to all that. I am currently getting a human communication studies major, either looking into marketing, maybe human resources. I'm still deciding. I'm going into my
Cool.
3rd year, and I just got hired at Chick-fil-A, so I'll be starting that job soon too.
How come you don't work at the amusement parks?
That's a great question. I think it's definitely I definitely would if it
Yeah.
was feasible in the sense where I'd still have quite a long commute, so I'd still have to go all the way to, like, even on days where I'm not going to school, I'd have to drive all the way out to like Disneyland Knott's, and that's a
Yeah.
lot of gas, and
Yeah.
getting
It's
paid
expensive.
minimum wage
Right.
is probably when I've looked into it. I mean, I definitely would love to be like a ride operator or something along those lines. But
By
it's
the
just
way, do you
feasible.
know a little bit about carnivals too? Like
Yeah,
carnivals? Oh,
sure,
yeah.
sure. I love
So
carnivals.
how do you know when a carnival is going to exist in your city or not? Is there you just talk through people, or is it their website?
Yeah. I mean, that's typically something where, I mean, the little city I live in, we have like a yearly carnival,
Yeah.
like a local thing, and so everyone knows about it when it comes. I mean, it depends where you live. I suppose over where I live, we have the LA County Fair, the OC County Fair, and typically they'll make it be known that it's going on. They'll run advertisements, and you won't go 5 minutes listening to the radio without hearing about it, right? But I mean, it's definitely something that's as easy as Googling and just kind of figuring out, okay, when's the local carnival coming? You know, you'll find it somewhere. It just
Cool.
kind of depends.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man. Any other last words, man? Nothing? Or it's all good now?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Glad to chat about this.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So everyone go check out this book on Amazon and go check out Noah. I appreciate you guys. And yeah, thank you for the interview.
Of course, thank you.
All right.